Ronnie O'Sullivan is 50 years old, he's just made a 1-5-3 break and now he says he wants world title number 8, so the real question is this his last real chance to do it? Welcome to Pocket Watch, your bi-weekly snooker catch-up. On your left is everything that we're going to cover this week, but right now, check this out. And we have to talk about it. Ronnie is playing in China, and if he lifts that trophy, all bets are off. Okay, so he didn't win, but he came very close and he played some exquisite snooker. Let's recap, including my one thing that mattered from the World Open. I started watching snooker in the 1980s when any player making a 147 was huge news. Last week, Thepchaiya and Un-Nooh made a 147 in the final, and that wasn't even the highest break of the tournament, which is absolutely ridiculous. And both players scored 3 centuries in a row in that final. But Ronnie's 1-5-3 in the quarterfinal against Ryan Day was, well, factually, it was the highest break in professional snooker, but emotionally, insert positive adjective here. What do we even say about this? 4 episodes ago, we're asking, is Ronnie done? And a lot of you were saying yes. And now we're genuinely asking, can he win an 8th world title? And the answer seems to be maybe. Because moments like this make you think that he can win number 8, but then they don't prove that he can do it when it really matters. We'll get to Ronnie in a minute. And then again in another minute. But for now, well done, Thepchaiya and Un-Nooh. I absolutely flipping love this for him. He is hands down one of the most entertaining and relentlessly attacking players on the tour. And I know I'm not alone in being delighted to see him get his first proper ranking title. The shootout doesn't count. I know it, you know it, and Thepchaiya knows it too. On his way to the trophy, he beat Gary Wilson, Judd Trump and Ronnie O'Sullivan, and he did it convincingly. That evening session, when Ronnie came back at him, he responds with 3 centuries in a row, including a maximum, his 3rd of the season, and showed bottle of the highest order to get the win. So my question for you is, when he can play like that, why hasn't he done this before? I know the answer, I just want you lot to have a go. And now for Ronnie. Like most snooker fans, I like Ronnie, and like most snooker fans, I found it increasingly difficult to watch him since his last world title win in 2022. Not because he hasn't been playing well, but mostly because it just seems like he just doesn't give a fuck. But last week in China, he seemed different. A few things struck me off the table, and then we'll talk about on the table. Firstly, I like hearing Ronnie talk about wanting that 8th world title. I am fed up of hearing him moan about his cue action and the countless weird shit he said in interviews over the years. Last week was different. There was still weird shit, but at least he was smiling. He was positive, he was making jokes, he was talking about practicing hard, and all of that showed up on the table. He was exceptional in China. Okay, he didn't win it, and we'll talk about why in a second, but he produced some of the best snooker that we've seen out of him for a while. He was consistent, controlled, and calculated, and lots of other words beginning with C, but yes, he didn't win it, and why not? For me, it was the same reason that John Higgins hasn't won the 3 finals that he's been in this season. Ronnie didn't play as well in the final as he'd played all week. There were moments of it, those 3 consecutive centuries, for example, but there was more mistakes, there was more doubt, there was an inconsistent rhythm, and I think that's why he lost. Endurance and stamina. And the World Championships is all about endurance and stamina. The truth is, what happened at the World Open doesn't really change my stance on who I think can win the World Championships this year. My 4 remain the same, more on them later, but it does introduce Ronnie into the conversation. Of course he can win it for the 8th time. He's the GOAT, he's practicing hard, he's finding form, he's had rubbish seasons before where he's gone on to win it. Of course he can do it again. And yet he obviously won't. He didn't have the endurance to beat a player outside of the top 16 in the final. And his game was riddled with mistakes in that first session. And the field is probably stronger than it's ever been. But then he still could. He doesn't have to be the best player in Sheffield. He just needs to be the most consistent across those 7 days. And he's done that several times before. But can he do it again? And is this his last chance? Time for the power rankings. The power rankings has recently become my top 5 picks for the World Championships based on form this season. And this week, nothing much has changed. Mark Selby and Judd Trump switch places, mostly because Mark Selby has had some absence and a few dodgy tournaments. The biggest news is that Ronnie doesn't make the power rankings, and quite frankly, despite some absolutely ridiculous snooker this season, he just hasn't played well enough. And if Ronnie's not even in my top 5, how can he be favourite to get that 8th title? Go on, fight me. Every single match in the Tour Championships is absolute fire. The top 12 players on the 1-year list meeting to duke it out. This is the last real indicator before Sheffield. And Thepchaiya and Un-Nooh will be there. He had to win in China to make it to Manchester, and we know that Zhao Guodong will have been one player that will have been rooting for Ronnie to win. Thepchaiya's victory in China means that Zhao Guodong drops to number 14. Ronnie isn't playing in Manchester, so it means that the top 13 will be playing there. Yeah, that's right. Ronnie isn't playing in Manchester, which is either genius or a problem. So match fitness, or will his obviously improved practice time make a difference? As for Manchester itself, this should reveal a lot about what's going to happen in Sheffield. I'm going to be there at the end of the week from quarters, semis and finals, so expect a lot of content over the Easter holidays. And a gentle reminder, if Zhao Xingtong wins in Manchester, he'll be the first player ever to win all 3 Players Series events in one season. So if you're there, come and say hello, and if you're not, tell me who you think I should be rooting for. If you haven't already seen, I started a new series on YouTube called Cue Cards, where we rate snooker players. So far, we've done Judd Trump, Alex Higgins, Zhao Xintong, and this has been the most divisive thing I have ever done. Here are some of my favourite comments so far. On YouTube, James D755 said, by today's standards, Higgins wouldn't even turn pro, nowhere near good enough, controversial in my opinion. While Lilith Matriarch 7509 said, hello, just found your channel and subscribed. Thanks, Lilith. How are you factoring the factuals into the score? Are you weighing them somehow, or are they auxiliary to the calculation? Well, Lilith, I'm just making it up. Not really, I created an algorithm to calculate it all. Genuinely, I did that. Meanwhile, over on TikTok, Jonathan Newman 63 said, Higgins was not a 98, you are way off. After a bit of back and forth, Jonathan revealed that his score would be 95. Which I considered to be way off. And about Alex Higgins' long potting score, Stephen O'Riordan 3 simply said, lol, for f***'s sake. Can't argue with that, Stephen. This and my series of top 5 videos are by far the most fun that I've had with you lot, so please do keep the comments coming. But the big question for this episode is, can Ronnie win that 8th world title? Here are your options. A, yes, now or never. B, no, he's still got time. C, he wins it this year. D, he never gets number 8. Drop your comments below, best ones get read out next episode. That's episode 7 of Pocket Watch, and like Ronnie's performance in the final of the World Open, it started out strongly, meandered in the middle, and then essentially petered out. I'll be back in 2 weeks when we'll catch up on the Tour Championship, review the power rankings, and be one step closer to Sheffield. In the meantime, if you're in Manchester for Easter, do come and say hello. Mine's a dark chocolate Easter egg. Dairy. See you in a couple of weeks.